it's the absence of a lie, is how this is at least framed, right? I am telling you something true. Transparent is about I am telling you something true and telling you something that I want you to know that will give you an accurate read on the experience of this thing.
Right. Which is why what we might choose to say is different,
Mhm.
right? Because the accurate read on a situation where one of us is out and sees an ex is, yeah, we're not and had a great time, right? Like there is no more relevant information that either one of us needs. And perhaps for this couple on Instagram, that is not enough context for it to be okay, right? Like the context would be it is important that if you run into this person that I know about that. And so, the husband coming back and saying so is an act of generosity and kindness and closeness and togetherness building.
Welcome to the Intimate Philosopher, where philosophy meets intimacy and life's biggest questions finally feel at home. I'm Dr. Emma Smith. I'm a licensed professional counselor, certified sex therapist, and existential philosophy nerd, inviting you to join me for an after-hours conversation. This is a space to slow down, pour a glass of wine, or maybe a cup of tea, and explore the messy, beautiful intersections of meaning, connection, desire, and being fully human. This is the place for real conversations about the parts of life that don't fit neatly into a box. So, grab your glass, get comfy, and let's dive in. Hi, friends, and welcome back to the Intimate Philosopher. This is episode 12, and it's really exciting because this is my first non-solo episode. And so to join me, I have Miss Alivia Stehlik. I'm sorry, Dr. Alivia Stehlik, who is, among many things, the producer of this podcast. So the fact that it happens weekly and sounds good, we can all thank her for. And she is also a brilliant physical therapist. And this is my favorite part. She's also my partner. And so there is no better person to have a conversation about relationships with than the person who gets to deal with me in said relationships. So welcome, Dr. Alivia Stehlik.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's fun to be on the front end of this and not just on the back end.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Is that gonna be weird to edit your own voice?
Probably, but that's okay. It won't be the first time I've edited my own voice, so
Oh, that's
that's okay.
yeah, you were just telling me before we started recording that you used to perform in high school for a youth group service that was larger than my hometown church, like the main church.
I mean, this is what happens when you grow up going to a mega church with a 1,200 person main auditorium, is that the room for the high school youth group, seats several hundred. And not that there were that many people there all of the time, but it was a big room. And I suspect that it was actually bigger than your home church. Yes.
I mean, it sounds like it was bigger than my hometown. So
Well, the campus of McLean Bible Church may have been bigger than your hometown. They did buy the National Wildlife Federation's building and parking lot and land. So
if it was bigger than 1 square mile, it is bigger than my hometown.
hard to say, but
The
seems likely.
world the world may never know. Yeah, seriously. Okay. Well, so this is episode 12, and, I wanted to kind of do a recap and a wrap up, and also kind of have some fun answering some questions and talking about some things that, we normally talk about like on our couch or over coffee. And I thought it would be fun to talk about them for the rest of the world.
I think that's great. I mean, we've said so many times that we should share the conversations that we have because I think other people need to hear the conversations that we have. Maybe not when we're having them. That would be weird, right? Like, you can't actually come sit in our living room with us, but we can have them here.
Okay. Yeah. So you got to hear every episode, every minute, every second of every episode because you were the mastermind behind them. Was there anything that was surprising or what stuck out for you as we kind of started this?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to say that I wasn't actually the mastermind behind this, right? Like this was your idea and the episodes are very much creatively yours. I'm just the person who makes the sound pretty, right? So there's the listening to the story or the content, and then there's the listening to the actual audio waveforms. And that's the part that I do, is making sure that what comes out of your earpods, your car stereo, or maybe your home theater system, if people are really getting fancy, making sure that that sounds good, right? Because it matters to not be distracted by something that is not pleasant to listen to, right? I think that that's important. And also, I think you and I are both obsessed with quality. And so that's been part of this journey. But to your question, what's been interesting or what has kind of stood out for me, I think the thing that's so fascinating to me is that I'm down in the weeds of the actual audio waveforms and, kind of trying to change things, tweak things, eliminate some sounds, making sure that everything is smooth. And so, at some points I'm editing at the 10th of a second. And so you don't really know what's really being said. Like, I'm not really paying attention to the words that are being said. I'm really paying attention to the sounds that those words make, right? Or the sounds that a word is composed of. So, I'm playing it through in real time, but I pause it a lot and then have to go back and replay to make sure something I tweaked sounds right. What's really interesting is that then, after it's all said and done, after it's recorded, after it's edited, after I export it, and then we upload it, I will go back and listen to them because I want to know how they sound out in the world, because there's always something that changes in translation between what we record and what I edit and what ends up out in somebody's ears. We don't have to get into the technical details, but I go back and I listen and I'm like, oh, that's what that episode was about, because I've only gotten these little snippets. And what it makes me think of is how important or how significant our attention is, right? Because it takes me a long time to edit the episodes to make them sound the way that they do. And you couldn't say that I'm not paying attention, right? Like I'm paying very, very close attention, but not to what you're saying, right? I'm really not paying attention that much to the content. I'm paying attention to how it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that must be something that shows up a lot in your work, where it's not just what somebody is saying, but how they're saying it or how it sounds.
Yeah. I mean, as you're talking about that, I'm like, oh, first off, I have to say this before I lose my train of thought completely. I want to go back and say that for everyone, I know that Olivia just made this sound very, simple and clean. Like, she goes in and she does this. I have the loudest mouth, I think, that I have ever heard. And so she actually makes me sound so good, and actually still makes me sound like me and not like, some weird techno, like the AI filters that they have like in some of the podcast recording software. Yeah, it makes you sound cleaner, but it doesn't make you sound like you. And you actually go through and very meticulously do this, and it is painstaking. And I don't know how you do it. You must love me very much.
I do.
Um, so I just want to draw attention to that. So like when these things are happening, it is a labor of love. And so now to what you were saying about paying attention, I think that's really interesting because sometimes people will say in my couples therapy sessions, they'll be like, well, you know, he or she never pays attention to me. And I think that's actually really interesting because the other person often will be like, yes, I am. Right? And maybe they are, but
Yeah.
they're not paying attention to the same thing, or they're not paying attention to the same piece of the whole context, right? It's almost like, when they talk about like love languages, and yes, I know that love languages are not a scientifically created thing. Okay. So, like, whoever is going to comment that Yes, I know. Okay. And it's something that is now like in the culture. So if you think about, if someone keeps buying you flowers, but you really just want them to empty the dishwasher, right? They are trying to express love to you. They are doing it in a way that is not how you would prefer it, right? And so maybe the person is paying attention to you, but they're paying attention to this piece over here.
Yeah, and maybe you're not paying attention to what they're doing for you because you don't hear that, right? Quote unquote, right? I think either party in that can be paying attention to the wrong thing or missing something or not paying attention to the right thing because it doesn't mean the same thing to each person. And this is why it's important to communicate and to say, hey, I'm doing these things, it means this to me. And the other person is, oh, interesting. That's not what that means to me.
Yeah. Do you have an example? I feel like you have an
Well,
example.
well, I mean, it actually makes me think of this reel that you sent me, actually. This idea of attention, I think it dovetails into honesty and transparency. Um, and you sent me this reel that was this couple on Instagram talking about what's the difference between honesty and transparency and how important it is to be transparent as a couple if you want to have a successful long-term relationship.
Mhm.
And so they said they gave these three different examples, and one was, the husband came back in from some event, or it was in the morning, and the wife said, how was your thing last night? And the honest answer was, it was great. I had a good time. And the transparent answer was, it was great. I had a good time. Also, I saw my ex and we chatted for a few minutes. Example number two was the wife coming in from grocery shopping and saying, kind of volunteering, I think the honest thing to say was, I got everything that we needed at the grocery store. And the transparent thing was, I got everything we needed at the grocery store, but I also spent some extra money, more than we planned, because I saw some things that I thought were really important to get for the kids. I'm paraphrasing, it may not be exactly that. And then the last scenario was about work stress. I think the husband was sitting working at the laptop, and the wife came over and was like, hey, are you okay? Is everything okay? And, the honest answer was like, yeah, everything's fine. And the more transparent answer was, yeah, everything's fine, but I'm kind of stressed and I feel a little bit disconnected from you because of all of this work that I've been having to do.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Well, and what's really interesting is that I sent this to you, and I think I said it in the message, like, "Tell me what you think about this," because there was something about it that I was like, there's part of me that says, like, "Yes, there is a difference between what they're showing," but man, there's part of this that is just, like, not hitting right for me. And so, of course, I send it to you and I'm like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Because sometimes you will have a different perspective that I really value, and I was excited to be like, "Okay, like, let's talk about this." And I'm really glad that we did because it ended up being this lovely conversation, but I wanna hear more about it as we're kinda sitting here. So, like,
well,
what.
it's one of the things that's interesting about that is the way that you sent it, right? You said, what do you think about this? It wasn't, you kind of left that really open ended, right? Like, that's a really nice open question that, like, I could have said a lot of different things. It also didn't pre-bias me into thinking something some way or another. Like, if you had this feeling and you were like, "Something about this doesn't feel right to me. What do you think about it?" Then I would have gone into it thinking, "I trust your instincts. I trust your intuition. You're really smart. I trust how you look at the world." And so I would have gone into it with that, and I didn't. I went into it very open-minded,
Mhm.
and I actually had the same reaction that something about it felt off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, um, and then what hit me was this, it was actually the first scenario. The last 2, this money piece and the work stress, I think those feel really like things that we might say to each other, actually, and I think that we have.
Yes, except that in this moment, I'm realizing that every time I go to the grocery store, I always buy extra, and I never come home and tell you.
That's not true, you do buy extra. You're like, "I got you this thing."
Yes, but I don't come home and, like, confess it.
On the other side of it, it feels a little bit like you're confessing.
Does it really?
Yeah, well, I mean, not so much that not confession in that you did something wrong, but just it's an acknowledgement that you did something different, right? And I think that's why those examples felt good. There wasn't something wrong about it. It was this just acknowledgement of, oh, this thing. Like, even in the money example that the wife gave in this thing, she didn't say, oh, I did this thing that was wrong. It was actually this thing was important to do, but I did it and I didn't consult you,
Hmm.
right? I just made a decision, but it wasn't, oh, I think I did something wrong.
That's true. That's true. I think, in that case, she was like, I don't want you to be surprised when you see the bill. And I was like, oh, that's lovely, actually.
Right. And I think that that's something that you and I do often. And similarly with, this checking in of, hey, is everything okay? Almost
Hmm.
this, I can feel that something is not right.
Hmm.
And maybe it's me. And so I'm just checking to see, is that something that I feel just inside myself, or is that something that is coming from you? Right. And so I think what are you laughing about?
Because I'm laughing because you do say this to me a lot because I am a walking ball of big feelings. And it is so often, even rarely, is it actually about you. And so often it is just like, the existential malaise of the day where I'm just like, existence is hard. So,
That does feel true, that is often how it is for you. Um, but I think that feels good, right? And there is this sense of, oh, no, actually, I'm fine versus, well, like, yeah, I'm fine, but also I'm having a hard time,
mhm,
right? And that context provision allows you to build closeness and to say, one, what I feel is or is not real. And so I can like kind of bounce my feelings off of what the other person's feeling. But two, then it allows you to say, oh, well, what do you need? Right? Do you need something from me in this moment? Do you need me to leave you alone and let you work? Do you need tea in your case? Right? Do you need something to make it better? Or is it just kind of what it is and it will pass?
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. I want to pause here for a second and tell you about a tool that I genuinely use every single week, and I paid for it myself. I've used it for about the last 6 months, and this is the planner from Nine to Kind. As you know, our brains are designed to prioritize threat detection over everything else, right? So maybe you didn't know that, but it's true. And the truth is also that right now our brains are having to process a lot of information, so much so that it's actually overwhelming our working memory. So if you find yourself feeling less, I don't know, like on point or forgetting random things, it's not really you. Okay. And at the same time, you still have to figure out how to function within it. So I think it's great when I see other people doing like the aesthetic bullet journaling, but I'm not doing that. So I had to find something else. And one of the things I love about this planner is that it actually combines real structure with emotional regulation because it was designed by an actual therapist. And, there's DBT informed prompts, there's space to track how you're actually doing. And this feature actually mattered more than I expected. There are built in notebook pages right inside each week. So my thoughts and my meetings stay where they belong. And my ADHD brain really appreciates that one. So no more juggling multiple notebooks. That in and of itself is worth checking out. You can use code EMMA20 for 20% off. And if you're like me, a GSD woman who wants to take care of herself without turning self care into yet another project, this one actually works for me. And I think you'll love it. And it helps support the show. So go to 9tokind.com and remember, use code EMMA20 for 20% off your order. Okay, back to the show.
But that first situation, I think we agree, was like the thing that really bothered us. And probably for different reasons, actually.
Yeah. So do you want me to go first
Yeah,
or do you
go
want to
for
go?
it. Go for it.
Okay. So for that one, the guy comes home and he's like, yeah, the honest answer is like, yeah, I had this great time. It was lovely. And then the transparent answer is, and I saw my ex and we said hi and that was it. And the genuine thought that goes through my mind when I hear that is, why are you telling me? If that's it, why are you telling me?
Yeah, and I think because it implies that there is a meaningful difference between me going to my work party and not seeing my ex and me going to my work party and seeing my ex, right? There is a meaningful difference between I went to the grocery store and I spent what was in our budget and I spent more than what was in our budget. Or there's a meaningful difference between I am fine and everything's actually fine, or I'm fine, but also I feel really stressed and I need some support. Those
Mhm.
things have a meaningful difference. And so I think that the context of this video was there is a meaningful difference between I went and had a good time at my work party and I went and had a good time at my work party, but my ex was also there and I saw her.
And said hi.
Ooh, scandalous.
And said hi. Yeah. Well, and I think part of this has to do with, you know, we obviously exist in a lesbian relationship, right? And so I think that lesbian couples do tend to have a different relationship with exes. And not that like you have to be the biggest fan of everyone, but like when there is a very small community and maybe you have like one bar or one club that you go to, the likelihood that you're going to run into your ex there is huge, if not inevitable.
Right.
And being, like, I'm not going to talk to that person is just weird for probably all of your mutual friends because the community is small, you
Right.
know? But also, like, and I'll let you kind of expand on, you come from a very different culture in terms of how people are allowed to interact. And I always think this is so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I say often that my parents didn't even have friends of the opposite sex. I can't count the number of times my dad has said that men and women can't be friends. Um, like, just impossible. And I always thought that was nonsense. To be quite honest, I just was like, that can't possibly be true. And I still think that that can't possibly be true, actually. I do think that people can be friends, whether they're men, women, or neither. I think that you actually get to make choices about how you interact with someone, and you can choose to be a friend to someone. Obviously, the context with my dad was you can't be just friends, right? It was
Mhm.
that there's always this risk that you will fall into temptation and sin, because that was the culture I grew up in. But that never made sense to me. I think I have always had this much higher belief in my freedom to have the relationships with people that I want. And um, I don't know. I think I've had to work professionally with men and women, and like some of them, not all of them, were my friends, right? Just
Mhm.
like not everyone is my friend, and that's okay. But there's this, you can have friend relationships. And so I don't know. I just think it's interesting. And in my context growing up, I can imagine my dad having come home and said something like, oh, but I saw this person, because it would have been significant to like acknowledge that this person had been there and that he had seen her and said hello. Like, I think there would have been almost guilt about that, which I think you and I don't share at all.
No, no. I mean, I think that's actually really interesting. And as you're saying this, what I'm realizing is like, everybody has to develop the culture of their relationship and
Right.
the norms, right? And what are your agreements in that relationship? And, you know, I may have thoughts and feelings about whether or not I could exist in a relationship where people of the opposite gender or sex I couldn't be friends with, and that gets real weird for me because as a bisexual woman, I'm like, "Well, then who am I talking to?"
No one. You can
No
have
one.
no friends.
Well, I will be over here on bisexual island and, by myself, right? So, I have my own kind of, like, pause for, "Oh, I couldn't do that." And also, like, people are free to create the cultures of relationship that they want. If that is something that you want, fine. Or if that is something that you decide is going to be the norm for you, fine. And also when that person comes home and tells you the thing that you asked and agreed to know, you can't get mad at them.
Oh, we've talked about this a lot, that you have to be a safe person to tell the truth to. If you
Yes.
want that level of radical transparency, you have to be a person to whom it is safe to tell the truth. You can't get mad about it. You can't jump down somebody's throat about it because they told you the thing that you wanted them to tell you. And to be fair, like the couple in this reel did not, right? Like they were very gentle with each other. And I think that your point that you can have this culture in your relationship and that's okay is really important here. It matters to me to say we are not trying to poke fun at or say that this is wrong or bad. It was just interesting that to us,
Hmm.
that didn't feel necessary or even good. Um, but clearly for them, this was a good thing to have come home and said and say, "Hey, this happened and I just wanted you to know." And I think the follow on is, well, what happens if you don't say it? And in the context of our relationship, if this happened and one of us were out at something and saw an ex, and then, weeks later, somehow it came to light again, our own agreement, if you will, would be that, oh, the person didn't my partner didn't mention this because it wasn't important. Like
Hmm.
it didn't rise to the level of something I need to say just because it didn't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't have a meaningful conversation. There was just nothing to say about it.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, that I think that's why my initial reaction was like, what we're missing I need some context here. Like, has this guy cheated before with said ex, or has this woman tried to do some shady things? Like, is it a problem? And something else that didn't seem to be that way. Obviously, probably because it was like a scripted bit, not real life.
Right.
I hear this and I'm like, I have questions.
There is more information that I need to answer or to solve or to whatever.
Yeah. But to me, it's like if you're bringing that up, there's a reason for it.
Right. Yeah, the example that just popped into my head, and this is gonna sound silly, would be to say like, "Oh yeah, I was on my way home and I had to, there were several red lights on my way home." It's like, "Okay." Like, "Yes, I know that there are red lights on the way home. Like, why are you saying that?" "Well, 'cause I ran one." Right? Like, there's this sense that you're saying this because there's more to tell me.
Mhm.
And again, we're reading into this video, and I don't think that any of this was the case. It's just how it, kind of felt for us. But I'd be curious.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing about this that I actually did appreciate is that there really is this difference between being honest and being transparent because honest is I think it's like not lying, right? It's the absence of a lie is how this is at least framed, right? I am telling you something true.
Correct.
Transparent is about I am telling you something true and telling you something that I want you to know that will give you an accurate read on the experience of this thing.
Right. Which is why, what we might choose to say is different.
Mhm.
Right? Because the accurate read on a situation where one of us is out and sees an ex is, yeah, I went out and had a great time. Right? Like that, there is no more relevant information that either one of us needs. And perhaps for this couple on Instagram, that is not enough context for it to be okay. Right? Like the context would be, it is important that if you run into this person, that I know about that.
Mhm.
And so, the husband coming back and saying so is an act of generosity and kindness and closeness and togetherness building.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really great. And I think it's actually really wonderful that they showed him doing that because sometimes I have husbands sitting in my office who are, who will answer questions very, we'll say succinctly. And and they're in this habit of saying less in order to quote unquote stay out of trouble,
Mm,
right? And so often I'm the one that's I'm like, "Pause. Hang on, sir. You just answered that way too fast." Right? In fact, a recent example comes to mind where, you know, the husband said something, the wife said, "No, that's not how it happened." And he almost immediately goes, "Yep, you're right." And, and he had been like pretty energetic about his original stance. And I'm like, "No, no, no, pause."
So you're saying that he just, like, changed his story, was, like, 180 like that?
180 like that. And I was like, "No, that's not how people work." Right?
That's true.
That's not how people work. Hang on a second. Either you didn't believe what you were saying with the
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 first time.
strength that you expressed it the first time, or something else happened because I just watched you roll over real quick,
Mhm.
And so and then he explained it, and there was actually this thought process behind it. And, it was like, "Oh, actually, no," as soon as she said that, I realized, "Oh, that's actually true. She's right." Right? And I was like, "My dude, we just missed all of that goodness because all we heard was, 'You're right,' in this very, like, I'm just going to avoid conflict kind of way." Right?
It Yeah, and even if it wasn't meant that way, right? Even if it was an acknowledgement, which it sounds like it really was a heartfelt, like, and mind-changed acknowledgement of, like, "Oh, you were right." Um, the context of it externally, like you were saying, the experience of it to you and the wife in the room was very much like, "Oh, that can't be real. I guess too fast." And
Mhm.
sometimes saying the rest of the thing, like that transparency around thought process, and sometimes the work of slowing things down just a little bit to say, actually, you have to get that out, right? That matters. The thought process matters, right? Like when we were in college, my professors were always, show your work. Don't write the answer, show your work. Like I need to see how you got there because then I can figure out what you were thinking. And I think the same thing is true in relationships. Like I don't want to just see the end. Like I need to see your work. I want to know you. Like I'm curious about knowing you and how you got there.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you get there? And what was so cool about that is that he actually got to give his wife this gift of saying, "Oh, actually, when you tell me something, I am capable of one, processing new information quickly, assessing it, and agreeing." And I just thought that was so incredible that that he was willing to do that and put up with me, because I'm like, "Pause, hang on, I'm just constantly interrupting people." I know, it's terrible. So, I just thought that was really cool, and, I hope that a little bit more transparency can help folks when they're navigating this, because I think most people want to be kind and loving and really show up the best that they can for their partners, and no one teaches us how to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. And I think you said earlier about this, having your set of kind of agreements in your relationship that matters to say, these are things I do want to know about. When they happen, I do want you to be really clear and transparent. And these other things, like, they don't matter to me and I don't really care. And like, you can tell me if you want, I guess, but I don't need to know. And those things, those conversations on the front end matter so that on the back end, you kind of know what you need to be transparent about to build the kind of relationship culture that you want in your relationship.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, well, I think we probably should wrap up. Of course, we could have this conversation all day because we basically do.
That's true. We pretty much do.
We do. Okay, so as we kind of wrap up, I have to ask you, what are you most looking forward to for like the next set of our show?
Well, this first dozen or so has really been you, right? It's been you talking by yourself. And I think that's been really neat to, that's not a bad thing, right? I think it's been really neat to see how you've taken some of the things that come up so often in therapy with your individuals and your couples, and to bring some of that out to folks, because a lot of this isn't massively complicated. It just takes a little bit of an external view or somebody to say, hey, here's another way to think about this. And like sometimes that's all somebody needs to make a breakthrough, by themselves or in a relationship. But I think you have a bunch of guests that you're planning on having on over the next, I don't know, several months, and I'm excited to hear, to go back and listen to those ones. Obviously, when I'm in it, I won't be hearing it. I'll just be splicing things and editing, but I'm excited to hear, the cool folks that you have that are going to be on this podcast with us.
Yeah, I am so excited about that. I mean, for somebody who doesn't get out much, and right, I know actually a lot of really interesting people.
The internet's a wild place.
I know. It's so good. It's because, I take all these trainings, right? So, like, just to become a sex therapist is, hundreds of hours of training and then hundreds of hours of supervision and all this other kind of stuff. And so you get to know the people in your profession really well because there's just not that many of us, you know? And so you get to know these people and everyone has like their own strengths. And so we're going to bring on people who are experts in relationships with folks who are neurospicy. And I have people coming in to talk about what it's like to embody and reclaim pleasure as someone in the thick of perimenopause. And I also have people who are going to come in and talk about adding spice into the bedroom and making a little bit of kink more accessible. And like these are all really fun conversations to have. And I'm so excited about it.
That sounds like it's going to be really great. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Me too. Yeah. So, okay, friends. Well, thank you so much for joining both Olivia and myself today. And I hope that if you found this episode interesting, entertaining, helpful, or something else, that you will share it with someone you love or leave us a 5-star review because that really actually does help us get the podcast out to more people. So, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me for this after hours conversation. If something in today's episode made you pause, get curious, or see yourself a little more clearly, share it with a friend and keep that conversation going. Until next time, keep exploring that messy, beautiful space between meaning and being human. I'll see you next time.